Hello, live from Chicago. This is Spilling LoyalTEA, episode 14. Wow, episode 14. I can't believe it. Spilling LoyalTEA is a Digitas podcast. I'm co-host Brad Blackmon, executive client lead at Digitas.
And I'm co-host Melissa Berger. I'm Chief Solutions Officer for Digitas, and we're thrilled to be here in Chicago, especially when it's nice outside.
Oh my gosh, it's beautiful here today.
What a beautiful day.
I know.
What a beautiful day. Well, we wanted to introduce our very special guest. We are so lucky that she is joining us, Shamba from Epsilon.
Hi.
Would you like to introduce yourself and talk about your role?
Yeah, so I work at Epsilon. We do a lot of the data tech platforms at Publicis Group, and I'm a solution consultant. I spend a lot of time talking to clients about what they're trying to achieve and what's the best. I don't want to say stack because I don't feel like it's truly technology.
Yeah,
I think it's
you're
more
right.
around marketing enablement. So what's the best marketing enablement fit for them and how they can achieve what they're trying to do today, but then help them have bigger ideas for the future.
That's awesome. And for those of you who are new to this, basically Digitas and Epsilon work really closely together within the Publicis Group. So we're excited that you're here today,
Thank you.
Shamba. And I just met you last week, and we had like this long conversation, and I felt like we were like fast friends. So,
It's usually how we roll with most
I know.
people, Brad, to be fair.
we're like, you're all our friends. They're like, no, we're not actually.
No, we're definitely friends. We definitely have the same vibe. We're good.
Absolutely. Well, this is a big week in Chicago, and which is why both Brad and I are here,
all
as
here.
well as Shamba.
Absolutely.
There are two of the biggest CRM and loyalty conferences nationally here. So we have Salesforce Connections. Shout out to all of our Salesforce friends.
Yes.
And then also CRMC. So it's very interesting that they do these both every year, same week in Chicago. It's kind of, you get the best of both worlds.
Yeah, right before Memorial Day, you just make it happen.
Yeah.
Everybody comes to Chicago.
And then you walk out of Chicago a lot smarter
That's right.
and ready for summer break.
Exactly. Hey, ready for summer break. Yeah,
School's out.
great. So, Shamba, what are you focusing on while you're here this week for all of the fun events that are happening?
Yeah, I'm going to be spending my time at CRMC. I'm actually hosting a couple of lounge sessions really talking
wow.
about data
Yeah.
and the importance of the strong foundation that you have to have because technology is just technology. And unfortunately, this is not the field of dreams. You can't build it and they will come.
Yeah. Wing and a prayer.
Unfortunately.
You said that.
Right. You definitely have to kind of think about it and get it right. So really helping educate brands on what they should be thinking and why they should be thinking it. And, you know, what are some approaches to get there?
Very cool. Awesome. I love that you talked about the importance of data. And we're just going to dive in. Let's
let's
just
dive
dive
in.
into the
Let's do it.
topic. We're
Yep.
here. Thank you for your time. I know
Yeah,
you're
love
busy
it.
during this, but thank you for being with Melissa and I. So the importance of a data foundation. So we live in a world, if you think headlines, it's all AI, buzzy, shiny objects, which
Take a
are
shot.
amazing. Yeah, every time we say AI, I take a shot. But it is literally like it's everything that everyone talks about. If it's not Web3, it's AI, it's all these amazing, wonderful things. And they are shiny objects, but shiny objects for good, right? But we're all moving in that direction.
Yeah.
But those will only be supercharged by having a very strong data foundation. And I love that your fireside chats or whatever you said, your
Lounge.
panels, your lounge chats
Yeah.
are
Even
going
better.
to be talking about that because I think that that's something that I don't think we've forgotten it, but I think we've moved so far ahead, we forget that you have to have a strong data foundation to really make those things work. And that's why I wanted to talk about this today.
Yeah, I agree. And to some extent, I'm not sure people even know anymore what good foundation looks like.
Well,
That's a great point.
That
right?
is a great
Because
point.
the opportunity for consumers to join any program and then with any email or any phone number, right? How do you make all that make sense and realize like I'm just one person, right? It becomes a lot harder around a data management philosophy or methodology than it does around data capture. Data capture seems like it's so easy, and that used
Yeah.
to be the hard part, right?
Yeah.
But now it's so easy that we have to figure out how to manage it and make it whole and robust at the same time.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is where a lot of brands struggle. They're almost like, what do they say? I'm data rich and insight poor.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. So they've got reams and reams of data, but have no idea how to like connect it all so that a brand would see the consumer as like one consumer, not the 15 parts of data. They've come in the different siloed parts of their entity.
If they came in through e-commerce
Yes.
or if they were in store or if there was a kiosk or maybe they came in through social media and their handles or something.
Yeah.
How do you put all that together and realize it's just the same person interacting with your brand in multiple different ways? And the treatment strategy that you need So once you have the data foundation, right, but then the treatment strategies you can use to really enhance that experience for the member and getting them where they're at. You can't do any of that if you don't have that strong methodology for data foundation.
That's right. We were with a client earlier, and then I'll let you, sorry, Melissa, I was interrupting. But we were with a client last week, and we were saying the consumer only sees you as one thing, right? But you see them as all of this, right? And so, but they want to just have the expectation of consumers now is if I am a loyal person of your XYZ brand, then I want to be treated like that in every bit of communication that you give me, whether it's social, whether it's email, whether it's SMS, whether it's creative that's given to me through programmatic banners, whatever it is, I want you to know that you know that we have a relationship.
We have a relationship, and the conversation is a continuation,
right?
Not a new conversation every single
all the time. Right.
I mean, that gets old.
I was going to ask you, what's your number one piece of advice you give to clients in that situation when they're data rich but insight poor to kind of get them kicked off and started? Because I think this is a hot topic right now.
It is. And actually, it's really interesting. I just did a webinar last week, 2 weeks ago with Tractor Supply, who's one of our clients.
Love them.
Yeah.
Nashville boy right here.
I love them. I'm a hobby farmer.
Yeah.
And so,
we'll talk about that later.
Yeah. So I very much appreciate them. And the thing is they actually, the guy that's running their loyalty now, he's actually formerly an economist. And so like data is his thing.
Oh.
And he came in, he was like, oh my gosh, for him, he was like, we have all this goodness. And
I've got the blueprint for
I
success.
have the blueprint for success. And it really is around for them, making sure that they're really looking at all the things that their clients are doing or their consumers are doing and buying and where they're interacting across all channels. And is it different, et cetera. And the biggest questions that we got when we were done was like, well, how do I get started? And the answer is just start. There's two things, start and then stay committed.
Yes.
That commitment is the hardest part because it doesn't always result in all the great things that you want to hear, right? But the problem that I think, and Neil had mentioned this too when we were chatting, is like people have to be willing to fail because you don't learn anything. If you don't try things and then analyze the data and run, well, that didn't work, you might repeat it.
Yeah.
At least if you fail, you'll know what not to do again, right?
Yeah.
So it's that commitment to the process and making sure that you're doing all the things to get started and then just continue to follow it through.
Yeah, I love that you just said, even if you fail.
Yeah.
Because I think that that's something that we forget in the world that we live in today. Innovation can come because you have a trial and error part to get us where we want to be.
Right.
And I think that that's really important, investing in something, saying it might work, it might not work, or this portion of it might, but it's going to teach us to get to the next level is very important.
As long as you take the insights
Right.
from that
Forward.
Yeah, you got to take it forward and help it refine the experience, not only for the brand, right? For Tractor Supply, they're very committed to their mission and their value statements, and they're using this customer data to really make it feel like you are a piece of their family.
Right.
And that doesn't happen if it feels like a
10
unique,
different people are talking to
unique
you.
conversation every single time.
Yeah.
I like that because that piece of the family is a part of Tractor Supply's brand as
It
well.
is.
I think because you walk in to the brick and mortar and they're like, hey, Jim, hey, Brad, whatever, it's like a thing.
Yeah.
And I think they're taking that to the data side of it as well to
Absolutely.
supercharge relationships that are virtual or digital or those,
Yeah.
Well, and kind of what you're talking about, to be able to see a consumer as one, that's hard. It takes work. And I think to your point, the clients that are willing to commit to connecting all those dots, you're going to drive more loyalty in the end because the consumer or the customer feels that.
Absolutely. That piece of it is probably one of the most critical pieces because it doesn't, when you say that they feel that, it doesn't feel creepy. And that is such a key element.
Stalkerish, right?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, it feels disingenuous if it's a unique conversation every time. And if you get it to a place where it's like almost weird and creepy, that relationship and the family relationship, it may have its moments, but at the end of the day, it feels very natural.
Yeah.
And that's the key that for Tractor Supply, they're really getting after right now and redefining some of the elements in their roadmap. They're taking all of the information that they have and they're literally every year looking at how they can tweak their program to enhance it in a way that will help members feel like part of the family.
Yeah. I love that.
Well, it's interesting. Brad and I have been participating in some of the Publicis Group kind of group CRM, how we're talking about it. And we kicked off the meeting by asking everybody, like, what's your favorite, like, loyalty or CRM experience you had, or, what you've been doing. And it was really interesting because everyone talked about how a brand they really like, how it made them feel.
Mm-hmm.
And every single story was about the brand knowing who they are, acknowledging that they like their sparkling water in their hotel room, or, recognizing you for flying a certain, number of miles. So it's really interesting because the creepy factor, when it feels authentic, it's not creepy. It's not creepy. And so I think that's for brands, like, yes, like the big brothery piece can be a little bit weird, but when you start to see how it creates a better experience with you and that brand, people don't care. And that's what I've learned so much is, like, at the end of the day, people love kind of seeing and feeling like you care. And so you just have to do it in a way that actually just makes you feel that way.
So it's that emotional connection.
It is.
Yeah.
100%. And it's not easy to get to.
Yeah.
Right? It's like all good relationships, they don't happen overnight. Right?
What are you doing? You and I did, Melissa.
That's fair. That's fair. We were fast friends.
But it is like this thing that you continue to do, but it's that
100%.
give and take, right? The conversation starts here and we build on it, we build on it, and we build on it. And what we build on is that retention of information that we use to actually populate the thoughts for the next conversation.
Yeah.
And that's really all that it seems so simple and so obvious, but we, to your point, Brad, like we get so enamored with the sparkly things that seem like the silver bullets, and they might be one day, but they're only going to be as good as what they're sitting on top of.
Agreed.
Yep.
Agreed.
Yep.
And I love that you're telling people to, like, use the data to listen. And that is a relationship builder, because we don't always need to talk at, Melissa, you and I talk at people a lot, but like
Do we?
we do. We can walk into rooms, we talk at people. But the thing is like we have to listen, because that gives you the insights you need to be like, oh, well, they really are not jiving with this, that, or the other. Let's change this to meet their need that they have.
I think, too, a lot of retailers specifically over the years you've seen probably a very big shift. And I always laugh when I talk to a new brand. The first thing I do is I go to, like, their Facebook page.
Oh.
And I look at, like, are they a product pusher or are they a people brand?
Oh.
Right?
Yeah.
Because
That's really smart.
you want to see how they're relating to their consumers. And it's for a very long time, and it's a huge evolution that I'm seeing. It's really fun. But there was a long time where you just see them only promote their products, which is great. Don't get me wrong. I'm a huge consumer of lots of products.
And I've been pulled into that, for sure,
But at the end of the day, I want to see myself in that brand. I want to see, I want to feel connected to that experience. And the brand's payoff to me is making me feel like I'm family when I show up, whether across all those channels. And my payoff to them is if that means I've got to go 6 extra miles across 4 right turns to get there,
Yeah.
right,
I'm gonna do
across
it.
traffic, I'm going to do it.
I love that you said that I think I want to do that moving forward. Go to their Facebook page, understand, because there was a brand years ago that I loved. I won't name them, but they showed you the entire back of office staff and said, this is this person and they do this for this. And they've been here for 15 years and we love them, and they come for Thanksgiving and they do all these things.
Yeah.
That means that they're invested in their people, and that is their family. So you want to be a part of something like that. Yeah. So.
Well, and we talk a lot, too, around, like, the roles of every channel in the ecosystem, right? So what's interesting, too, you start on Facebook, you go to Instagram, then you check their email, their website, and if it's, like, matching luggage, you're like, okay, where you're not understanding how your consumers are engaging. So I love that, because when we do a lot of audits, that's one of the main things we're looking for. Does it look like you have kind of an actual comm strategy for how you're using different roles of channels and making sure that it's actually relevant? Otherwise, I don't need to follow you on 6 different things, get your emails, and go to your website if you tell me the same thing.
You're going to tell me the exact same thing.
Right.
The other thing I think is really interesting, and loyalty programs are probably the worst for this, is that they lean so hard on email.
Yeah.
Email's don't get me wrong, it's a
We love
fabulous.
emails.
Listen, and people
love it.
read them.
But when they don't,
Yeah.
why? Where are you missing? You're missing them. Where can you see them? Where else can you pick up that piece of that conversation? That's that continued evolution of that conversation. And it's really interesting because they don't know where to look, right? And what ultimately ends up happening is it's like, well, let's be safe than sorry. Let's just put the same thing everywhere.
Right.
Yeah. Catch a wide net, right?
Right. Right. Well, and I think people who, if you love a certain brand, like I'm actually seeking out those emails. So, we all probably have insane Gmail inboxes. I know I do. But there's certain brands that I actually want to see what they're putting in each. So I'll search for those specifically. But then there's a lot of the other, frankly, just like junk email that isn't targeted, doesn't feel relevant. Somehow I got on an email list I didn't sign up for.
Yeah.
You and I got it at the same time.
Exactly. So I think like it's really important, like you have to kind of just establish overarching customer loyalty. Then people are going to seek you out versus the way that I think a lot of brands are just like, frankly,
but
still
for you,
spamming.
there's value in it.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
So that information you'll seek out because you know it's going to be good for you. You're going to have to wade through a lot of stuff to get to the good. And I think that's where, honestly, if brands don't start really embracing their data strategy in a harder, more foundational way, all of their members or their consumers might start to feel that way.
Yeah.
That they're wading through a lot of stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
to
Or
get
they're
the good
going to
stuff.
build these massive shiny objects, getting back to what we talked about,
Yeah.
that's based on a very thin data strategy, right?
Yeah.
So it'll fall flat, right?
It'll fall flat. It'll cost a tremendous amount of money.
Right.
I mean, that just is what it is. It has not only an opportunity to be disingenuous, so it has opportunity to create, some dissonance that will make folks leave. But at the end of the day, they won't realize that if they could get in and get it right, it's so much cheaper to keep a client.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, to your point, going back on like the data
What's that?
foundation, exactly. It's like if you put in the effort now, you might spend a little bit more, but it saves you so much time, money, effort, frankly, probably issues
Yeah.
to do it right the first time.
I think I said this on Friday when we were chatting. If I don't know if it was with you guys, but I know I said it on Friday. I was like, it's literally it's like spending pennies
Yes.
today
Oh,
to
you
save
did. I have it
dollars.
in the notes here.
Oh, good. Yeah, I did say that.
Yes.
Yeah. But it is true. It's about spending pennies today to save dollars tomorrow because if you make investments, which I'm all for, right? Making investments in the next cool thing that's going to enhance the personalization. It's almost like a dirty word, right? Because we don't know what it means anymore.
Right.
Because the data's all over the place. But it's going to truly enhance in a meaningful way your personalization
100%.
strategy. And it's also going to have opportunity to, as you were saying, Brad, supercharge that customer journey to the next level. As long as what you're starting from is the right place. Otherwise, you're spending a lot of money and then finding out it doesn't work. And how many programs have we seen recently that seemed really cool, had like the latest and greatest of everything, but they retired it because they couldn't get the return on investment.
Yep.
Exactly right.
A strong data strategy can build a truly connected customer journey, right? That can make people feel value, make people interact,
100%.
feel part of the family, like Tractor Supply.
As long as they're listening, right?
Yeah.
They that's kind of getting back to what you were saying earlier, Brad, about just making sure that we're listening. One of the interesting things when Neil was talking, I was just like, it was so hard for me. I had to like sit on my hands while we were doing this webinar because everything I was like, oh, it's so good. Oh, it's so good. so good. He said that even at checkouts, like the people that they have at front line is like, oh, okay, I that's great. I'll send that back. And they actually do encourage the frontline workers to send back some of the noise that they're hearing, good and bad. And they were able to hear like they needed to make changes to make people feel more valued, and they did, and it had a huge result, and it was so positive. And he said, we were talking, and we kind of landed on, it really becomes that you think you know what you know until you realize you don't know it.
Yep.
And that's the only way you can get there is if you just continue to listen, you continue to modify and like, oh, that didn't work. I need to try something else, and staying committed to that process of continuing to try.
Yep.
First date, second date, third date.
100%.
It's a relationship.
It is. Well, and we've talked a lot about, when you're building an actual loyalty program, there's so much importance that needs to be put on, one, the business case. So you just brought that up. Like, we could all create the coolest, most awesome loyalty program we think in the world, but it might not make you any money, and it might not be great for the customer, which then brings us to the importance of kind of research and understanding, because those are two components that sometimes clients will be like, we don't need to do the business case. We don't need to do research. And every time we really push back on that, because otherwise, one, we need to make sure that we're not, smoking our own, sitting in a room, because brands, you can think your customers are going to respond to one thing, they don't. And then second, you do need to make sure that it's lucrative for the business, but also that it's going to be value to the consumer. So it sounds like you're having a lot of those conversations as well.
We are, because if it's really cool and people are excited about it, but it's not driving any results and it gets cut, you're going to upset members that had strong, it may have been great customers or had strong potential to grow and develop as a great customer lifelong. I don't know that the stakes are just way too high these days.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Social media is a phenomenal thing, but things can go south really, really fast.
Yes, they can.
We've seen it many times
Oh,
now.
yeah.
Yes.
Every day feels like something.
Yeah. And so making sure you get it right is it's probably never been more important, just because it can go south so fast.
Yeah.
And making sure that people appreciate that you're committed to that process of making sure that I may not get it right. I mean, it's like a great relationship. I may not get this right every single time, but my try is so hard. I'm going to continue. I'm going to come back and I'm going to try again.
Yep. Well, that's where you brought up the being willing to fail or being, at least risk open, because I think as an agency partners, right? We love the clients that are willing to try, that are willing to test, that are willing to take risks, because you're going to get a better outcome. Now, the fail fast mentality is the most important part of that, is okay, pick yourself back up and try something new. But I do think that that's an area that a lot of brands are just so risk averse, and you end up missing out on big opportunities.
Well, the other thing is I don't know that they see bigger picture in all cases, right? So I think that we still see a lot of siloed organizations.
Oh, yeah.
There's a huge evolution that's coming with that. But transformation is for sure a thing. But it's still not looking at how they leverage that data across their entire enterprise. So you may have hotspots of places where data is really doing, they're really digging in.
In commerce and this and that. Yeah, for sure.
And you should be looking at that and saying, how do I apply that to the treatment strategy for enterprise marketing? Or how do I apply that to my digital transformation? Or how do I apply that to my personalization initiatives? Because there's so much there that, people know, there are hot pockets of places in every organization that has great insights. And how do you take that to influence everything else that and maybe not everything, but that test learn idea around, this is working over here. Let's try it over here. And it's not only about making marketing spend more effective, but I think the biggest thing is the reduction of waste.
Yes, absolutely.
For sure.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, I feel like we could talk forever. I just looked at the time and was like, okay, wow. But I do think this topic is important. And I do think it's something I think people would love to hear more from you, Shamba, talking about this in their organizations and stuff. So feel free to follow Shamba.
Yes, please.
Find Shamba on social media and follow Shamba and all the awesome stuff that they're doing at Epsilon. I do think that a data foundation is key to everything, not only just for loyalty, and we talk about loyalty and all that a lot, but all the things that are coming, because a lot of people think loyalty and CRM, Melissa and I just had this conversation over the weekend, is just it's the email strategy or whatever. And you said that as well too, Shamba, but it's actually how it's all connected together in social and creative and content, and the list goes on, right? So I think that it's important for us to remember that data is key for everything, but good, amazing, clean data that you can actually utilize across your portfolio and across your entity.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Very
Obviously, we could talk about it all day.
I know, we could. And we will for the next few days in Chicago.
Yes, exactly.
Absolutely.
Perfect. So I know for us, Melissa, we have another podcast tomorrow.
We do.
So we have a client podcast tomorrow.
A special guest
Panera.
tomorrow we'll introduce.
So we're excited about that.
Very excited about that. And then we off to Cannes in a few weeks, which Brad and I are getting ramped up for that. We have a lot of activities and meetings and podcasts while we're there as well. So from Chicago, then off to France.
Oh,
yeah. Chicago to the south of France. Off we go. Well, thank you so much, Shamba.
Yeah,
thank
you
for
being
being
our
coming.
guest.
And it was such a pleasure being with you and meeting you last week, because we just met last week. But
did.
then also, I look forward to, I think, maybe dinner tonight and a few other things. So we're excited about that. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.